Hi. We're going to talk about our Zabbix to ServiceNow integration. And let's get started. First, who are we? As I already said, my name is Michael, and I'm a ServiceNow specialist. And my colleague is Morten, and he's a Zabbix specialist. And as you can probably tell, something has changed from the picture to the current reality. We work for a Danish company called TV2. As the name implies, it's a TV station. It was established in 1988, and it has 5 traditional TV stations, and also has online streaming and video on demand services. We make our money by selling commercials and subscriptions to the aforementioned services.
Yes. So, I want to talk about the specs we have. We have one Zabbix server, and then we have 3 Zabbix proxies. One is located in an external location, and then we have 2 in-house. We have around 600 hosts. It's a mix of virtual, physical, and synthetic hosts. And we have an average of 400 items per second and 15,000 active triggers. The services. Well, the things we monitor are web servers and web caches. And then we have video encoders. We also have some external services, like payment services, and then video on demand, CDN content around the globe. So we also monitor those. And we have Rancher, which is low-level discovered for all the microservices. And we have, of course, databases, and there's much, much more we are monitoring, but also much more we're going to monitor. So, ServiceNow. Well, in short, it's a script that I have developed, and what it actually is, it's just a bridge between Zabbix and ServiceNow, because it reacts on an action that is created in ServiceNow, in Zabbix, and then it creates the incident in ServiceNow. And also it synchronizes the hosts that can create incidents in ServiceNow. So, who is in control in ServiceNow? Well, the short answer is it's Zabbix. And why? Because Zabbix can detect the problems, and Zabbix knows the triggers, what state they're in, is if it's in OK or if it's in problem state. So this would be a natural one to control how to get incidents. And now Michael will tell you a bit about ServiceNow.
Yes, before I get started, how many of you either know of or are using ServiceNow currently? Okay, a few. But for those of you who are unfamiliar with ServiceNow, I'll give you a very, very brief introduction. It's a IT service management tool. And as such, the central part in ServiceNow is an incident. And ServiceNow handles the communication and the incident in this case. And what is an incident? In this particular case, it would be natural to say it could be a web server that's down. And what do we gain from this integration in terms of ServiceNow? Well, we gain more than just mere incident creation, but let's get to that. First, let's look at what the situation would be if we didn't have this integration. Well, then the only way to create an incident would be manually. And as you can tell here, there are quite a few fields that need to be filled out. So, such as the impact, how and the urgency, and in the end, what's the priority? How important is this? and who should handle it, and what is it, and what's the problem all about. With our integration, rather than having to manually move the data from Zabbix to ServiceNow, we can get it from Zabbix within few seconds from the problem appearing in Zabbix till it's actually an incident in ServiceNow. Other than that, we're able to add value. In ServiceNow, we use a component called configuration item. And in this case, the configuration item maps to the Zabbix trigger. This enables us to set predefined values, such as the priority, the assignment group, what the problem actually is. So some high value can actually be translated into human language, like, I can't think of an example right now, but the point is we can translate it to something that a mere human can understand. Also, we can attach runbooks, and a runbook is a very specific explanation as to how to fix the problem. If it's a problem we already know how to fix, we can write it in a runbook and attach it to the configuration item, so that when the incident comes around, whoever is to handle it can look in the runbook if, in fact, they don't know what to do. Also, reporting. We're able to use the pretty powerful tools in ServiceNow to do reporting as how often does an incident on this specific configuration item, i.e. Zabbix trigger, occur, who handled it, how long did it take, and again, we can along the way improve the runbook, so it always is when we need it. And we can collaborate. The incident comes in, and it can be moved around from department to department, and also it can come from us. We work in a part called the Operations Center, a very technical department, but it can be assigned to a less technical department. And now, back to Morten.
Yes. So, what did we, in fact, gain in Zabbix? Well, we gained the thing that we, in fact, have to think about how we write our triggers. Because we don't just want incidents coming in if there's a server that is running amok. So, yeah, we fine-tune our triggers more. And also one thing that it's an existing thing in Zabbix is the templates. And with the use of the templates, we can make more consistent information, because we can write a description and the trigger description that we can get into ServiceNow. And also the ID for the runbooks, that is written in the URL field. And we can also add a normal URL. It will still translate as a URL. And then we are forced to make the trigger names more descriptive, so that we know that by the look of the trigger, we will know what the problem is, in short. It doesn't mean that it has to be a mile-long description of anything, just has to be more precise. And there's no more guesstimation about what the downtime is. So, basically, in summary, we can now give non-technical people information in a non-technical way. And we have a better chance for delivering good reports to the board of directors, because we have more info from Zabbix with the downtime. And we also have the chance to pinpoint which triggers and which problems that are reoccurring. We can do that in Zabbix, but in ServiceNow, it gives you, should we say, a more clean, direct pull of the problems. Whoops. And then we have a thing that people start to share their knowledge, because it's very often that it's one person who sits with the information on one specific system. And if that goes down and he's not there, then most people are, yeah. So that's the reason why we have the run books, because now other people can do it as well. And of course, the relevant triggers create incidents. So we have to ask ourselves, what did we do? Well, in Zabbix, we created an action, and it's based on the host group. And we have two host groups that the trigger has to be a member of. That's production and one called ServiceNow integration. And also, it has to be qualified by a severity, and that severity is disaster. It could be any other, but we chose disaster. That's when we need to create an incident. And the command that we use is basically a curl command. It has the trigger ID, the event ID, and then the problem state. Is it an OK or is it a problem? So, when ServiceNow gets the problem state, it evaluates if it's illegal, and it does it by collecting information from Zabbix. It does it via the API, and it collects info from ServiceNow, also done via the REST API. And it compares the info that is the trigger valid, and is it valid in ServiceNow, and is it allowed to create a trigger? If it does, or create an incident. If it creates an incident if it's valid, and if there is an existing incident and there is a problem, then it updates. It puts in the information that, in fact, that the trigger has started again. And then it sets the downtime start. And then the second is the OK state. Again, it evaluates information from Zabbix and ServiceNow, and it's contacting the REST API on both services. And then, if it's an OK, it adds a comment that the trigger has gone into OK again, and it sets the downtime end. And I would like to point out that there's no database in using of tracking the states, because the Zabbix know it doesn't care about the state, it's just being told what to do. So there's no extra layer except that it's contacting Zabbix and ServiceNow, and that's it. So, anyone who has any questions?
So the questions from the Slido. First one, what will happen when the incident is closed manually in the snow and still active in the Zabbix?
Nothing.
Good answer.
Because the script only looks for any active open cases. Because, yeah, I can't see the reason why you would close an incident before the trigger is going into OK.
Okay, the next question is, how do you manage multiple events against ticket generation to avoid the ticket flooding? Sorry.
That the same trigger is multiple times, or
is it the situation that generally Zabbix can create a lot of alerts, and we shouldn't have that create a lot of incidents? Because if it's that, well...
Maybe the author of the question can provide some clue.
The question is...
Just a second, please.
Sometimes, yeah, we can have a single trigger which can produce multiple events.
Yeah.
And we are facing to the problem. And where your notification engine will can create, for example, a lot of trigger. And do you make any kind of bottleneck on your script or something to avoid that flooding? Because in fact, we know that there are several events during a certain times, but it's only the same trigger.
It's like when an event is fluctuating. Is that what you mean? When it goes up and goes an okay and
no, for example,
okay, or is one host with multiple triggers?
No, for example, it can be an item which is linked to a kind of log stuffing with a pattern, and for an interval, it can produce maybe 15 or 15 events, something like that, and to avoid 15 tickets to be created in this kind of interval.
Okay, yeah, that's with the fluctuating. When it goes into the okay state, when it has been problem, and goes into an okay, and then goes to a problem again, we have created so that it always, when looking for, with the problem, when it's triggered, it always looks for the open case. Okay. So if it goes into okay and then you close it, then you will get a new one when it's fluctuating. But if the case is open and the trigger is going up and down, up and down, up and down, it just adds comments to the case,
okay,
and that's it.
Thanks.
Also, one of the gains we have from this is being able to tell when did the problem start and when did it end. So we set downtime end when it goes into OK. But what we do at the current is that when it goes into OK, we set the end time. But if it comes up again before the incident having been closed, we simply, the next time it goes into OK, we set the new incident, the downtime stop. Okay. And an improvement we have on the drawing board right now is actually using something called outage, which enables us to actually tell the exact time. Because the problem is if it, let's say we have an incident, we are not on the in the office around the clock. So if it happens at night and it goes into a problem state, then it's okay for 6 hours, and then it goes into problem state again. If we simply look at the start and the end time, it would look like we had a downtime of 6-7 hours, when in reality maybe only 30 minutes. So we're working on improving that, because we can have the actual true downtime down to the second. But that's how it works currently.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Oh, I think there's a...
Thanks. The question number one. Do you have some backlink from ServiceNow into Zabbix? For example, to save some ticket identifier into Zabbix to update event when trigger is closed, or to create some acknowledgement in Zabbix?
At the moment, we only have if you acknowledge the event in Zabbix, when you acknowledge the event. But we're also a future thing is that when you assign it the ticket or the incident in ServiceNow, we wanted to return and acknowledge the trigger in Zabbix, so that when it is acknowledged or is assigned in ServiceNow, then the trigger will be acknowledged in Zabbix. It's a future thing that we're working on. But yeah.
Thanks. And second question, what's about fault tolerance? For example, if ServiceNow system is unavailable in this moment, what your script will do? Will it repeat some action, or this event will be lost?
At the moment, we get notified about it, because I have set up, if we can contact ServiceNow, then we all get an email about that ServiceNow is not available at the moment.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks.
yeah.
The question?
When you mentioned putting the reverse track in where you want to talk from ServiceNow back into the thing, is your Zabbix system public? How are you going to get around that communication issue?
That's what it's called. He knows it.
We're going to use a mid server once we implement that.
ServiceNow
yeah.
for mid-server?
Yeah,
Okay.
but that's still on the drawing board. But yeah, that would be how we'd use it.
Do you have it available for other people to have a go at it? Is it?
Not at the moment. It's still a work in progress, and it isn't at a state where we think we'd be proud to show it to the world. We're glad to explain the concepts, but there's room for improvements. But at the moment, even as it's in development, we have a lot of use of it, and it plays a central role in our incident management.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah, I wanted to know, did you guys consider using the API the other way around? Not just pushing from an action point of view, more querying the trigger API to recover the triggers?
Well, we could have used it, but we chose to do it that it's the trigger that decides it. So we don't have, because it's a part of the front end now, in fact. It's as a folder in the Zabbix front end. So that's why we just chose it as a URL. It could have been made command line as well, but yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so no more questions? Or did I miss something? Okay. Thank you very much for such an interesting topic and for your questions. Thank you.